Good evening to you all. We are pleased to be here with you. We are glad that you've chosen to join. Bringing with your preconceived concepts with the openness and desire to alter them in a fashion that suits you more at this time. We know that this is a period that has been peppered with change for you, and that in recent times, things that were previously considered, even by you, to be impossible, have been proving themselves to you in your day-to-day experience. There's not one of you in this group who has not shattered their beliefs of the possibilities in your current reality within the last 10 years. And many of you, before shattering those beliefs of what was possible or impossible, already knew what they no longer wanted to see as impossible. For this reason, you can celebrate yourself. You can have faith that the course that you are charting for yourself is one that is conducive to your further expansion and growth in the direction that you desire. In simpler terms, good job. We are excited to hear what you would like to talk about this evening.
Hello. So the first question is asked to clarify any confusion which human beings are having regarding their physical vehicle. For example, in this specific case, in a female vehicle, the hips and spinal column have had physical injury and trauma throughout the lifetime in this incarnation, several times in fact. Presently, in our experience, the specialized doctor has indicated that metaphorically, the engine is fine, but there is need for mechanical repairs. What is the pertinence to carrying out of the medical treatments, kinesiology, and nutrition? Does this assist the repair and healing of the physical vehicle, of the cells and physical structure and function, Or is it simply just a projection of the illusion which this being is playing within the human vehicle? If the latter, does this experiential reflection of the human through this so-called physical suffering have any collective relevance?
Yes, all has collective relevance. We will address each point of this question and attempt to address them in order. The first part of the question was a description of the current and past situation with regard to this being. But in this description, there was a question as to what the meaning or the purpose of the traumas and injuries sustained were in the lifetime of this being. There is a desire for understanding as to why certain things have happened. We would point you to the understanding that while it is all illusion, there is genius and mastery behind the illusion. There is no point of the illusion that is not written specifically for certain potentials to be available to an entity. To understand any one sentence in the story of one's life, one would need to zoom to a level of awareness of all the fractals and all the potentials that could come from each sentence, word, letter, and drop of ink. When a combination of circumstances seem to point to a pattern, or indeed do point to a pattern in the life of an entity, there is the natural tendency to judge the pattern as positive or negative, although as humans you tend not to see positive patterns, only the negative, or what you believe to be negative. And this judging is actually what is causing the pain on a far deeper level than the physical pain could possibly ever cause. The judgment is what allows you to hold on to the pain. The judgment is what allows you to fear the pain, to remember it, and to recreate it for yourself. And so the physical traumas and disturbances in the field of this entity are there for a reason, but the reason is not as you would potentially see it, for punishment, for being out of alignment, or for having had the wrong thoughts. This, as every other catalyst, is a beautiful opportunity to learn what it is you came here wanting to learn. Most chronic or longer lived physical ailment is of this nature. It is a persistent, ambitious, and very loving soul communicating that it so much desires in this lifetime to learn a particular lesson. Your question about whether nutrition and intervention and certain forms of movement could be helpful to you. The answer is yes, because the illusion of the solutions to an illusional problem are able to solve the problem on the same level it was created. There is the option to work around the problem by no longer seeing it as a problem and reintegrating it with your full being, seeing it as no different from pleasure. We are referring to pain. And integrate it in that fashion. However, that route is only relevant to whom it is relevant. To many, many others, there is another storyline awaiting in the pot of ink. For example, there are many of you who have come to have physical ailment in order to create the new medical system. For without problems on the level of which you perceive problems, there would not be those who are here to seek solutions. You have potentially written in the stars a contract, and we feel this may be the case with another being with whom you have contact, who needs you to have had the circumstances you have had, to have arrived at them, to create the mutually beneficial outcome of both of your life stories.
Thank you.
Is that you get to choose. However, if you are choosing with mixed frequencies, you will not find a diet that works, and simultaneously not be in a place to override and accept your condition fully. And so will remain in a middle ground. Our suggestion to all those who have physical ailment would be to focus on accepting all that is, as equal, benevolent, and pure love. This includes the pain, the treatment, the emotions one has about this subject, and all circumstance that circles around it. We are not able to scan the vessel's memory to find if there was a third part of the question. Would you like to repeat the ending of the question?
The ending of the question I think you're referring to is, if the latter does this experiential reflection of the human through this so-called physical suffering, does it have relevance collectively? Is that the part you wanted to hear?
Thank you. The collective relevance is applicable for all lives, all circumstances, all situations. Every experience that every portion of consciousness has is an experience that the entirety of consciousness has desired for all of consciousness to have. This is expansion. There is no way for any portion of consciousness to have an experience without all portions of consciousness benefiting from the experience. If one finds it soothing and more digestible to have their own experience by knowing this fact, they may lean upon this fact, for it is fact. This applies to every moment of joy and every moment of pain, and to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next question. You mentioned previously the marvel of our physical vehicle, the female in particular. Thank you for that transmission. It was both healing and helpful in many aspects. Regarding genetics and what we humans call DNA and such, is it accurate that a disease or physical trait, etc., is sometimes passed in reproduction, gestation, and childbirth to the newborn child for the purpose of that child to continue or finish the experiencing, reflection in the next family generation, and so on? Or is this simply some human mocked up belief that this is so? Next part, do you have more to say on this topic of collective work throughout family generations in the female, mother, and child relevance in the human vehicle sense?
the question relating to what you call DNA is both yes and no. Yes, there is programming within your cells that multiplies and during the reproductive process does get used to create new vessels for entities that choose to join your planetary existence or collective consciousness existence. These coding blocks and base material carry with them the possibility of being shifted and chosen by the entity coming into the vessel, as all things are able to be shifted and modified by the entity coming into the vessel. The closest example of what we can describe to you is if you were to get a computer game where you had 3 blocks and each block had 6 sides, and you could decide which side to put up or down. Each side colored differently. You would have many combinations. Someone else would get 3 different blocks. The blocks are given to you by the genetic material, and it is you as an entity who chooses which block to turn up or down. And this is related to each and every marker on your genetic profile, which humans have not discovered all of at this time. By that means, some of the information that you have, for example, in part how eye color is determined, is in part accurate in that you have been given certain blocks and have chosen to have the blocks blue if you have blue eyes, and brown if you have brown eyes. However, for each manifest attribute on each gene, there are not only 6 sides from which you can switch. We will not give numbers, but there are many more than 6 choices. Part of this question touches upon whether or not offspring come to finish the previous generation or several generations past's business, and in part this is correct. There's always a desire to improve upon what was given to a being from their parents. But please remember that the child that comes in knows far more than the parents coming in. They know exactly what they are walking into. And so, of course, they have the potential and possibility, if they are not too manipulated and too controlled in childhood, to improve upon the situation. And in fact, this is exactly what they've come here to do. Because the physical world is both an illusion and real, questions such as these will always have an unsatisfactory result for there is no way to explain in your words the vastness of what is seen. To us, it is not a paradox that genetics is both real and unreal, that children are both wise and unwise. And as our communication becomes more fluid and potentially telepathic, we will be able to transmit this knowing in a far more acceptable manner. Will this answer suffice for now?
Yes, very much so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the group? There are no apparent questions from the group at this time. Just one moment, there may be one. Tobias and Anne, you may speak. Just 1 second. Yeah, there you go. You're unmuted now.
I'm curious of the way your perception of our existence, of our planetary existence, could be described in words, if it could be described in words at all. How you perceive us, what you see, or is it just knowing?
The first thing we would say is that we do not see a planetary existence in the way that you are referring to. We see the beings on what you are calling a planet, and not even on, as a part of us. We do not see a separation between you and us at all. Nor do we see a separation between your animals and bacteria, and trees, rocks, plastics, waters, gases, atoms. all of those things that you've given names to and separated from you, we do not see as separate from us. And so it is hard to describe what one sees or feels about a part of oneself without performing the act of separation from oneself. We know we tread in the grounds of paradox once again, as if we are not separate, then how and why are we speaking to ourselves? But this is the beautiful spiral of the illusion. For a part of you knows that you are not what you think you are. That part of you did not arrive at awareness, knowing or thinking that it was on a planet, or that it was human, or that it was male or female, or that it had limits or boundaries. If you go to the moment of your birth, all that you know is that you are. This is how we see you. We see you from that optic of I am. And the flowers and emoticon hearts get removed from the energy of what you know closest as love, when one sees from the eyes of I am. For anything that one can rest their eyes upon is them. And so to come to why we communicate with you from that viewpoint, although completely unnecessary in one part, also the most loving on another. And those two parts are the whole.
Tobias, do you wish to respond?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next question. Can you speak about the climate change that we are facing now in our collective?
We can. This topic, and you will find many topics like it, exists for several reasons. The first is that you choose for it to exist, and on a collective level, you are choosing for it to exist. Remove judgment from any topic, and one suddenly has to look at why they were judging it in the first place. What is the logic behind judging something? In the case of climate change, potentially, the reason why it is being judged is because one is afraid of death of humanity, death of the planet. But you would have to ask yourselves why. Why attribute the death of humanity and the death of the planet to the climate changing when you are so successful at killing the animals on the planet and killing the vegetation on the planet and killing each other without the climate doing anything at all? You may focus your energy on worrying and arguing and fearing climate change, or you may focus your energy on ceasing your current behavior of killing each other and the planet and the animals. You are not facing climate change. You are facing your own choice to not face anything at all. You can remember that when a collective comes to a point of enough discomfort, it is necessary for them to change course. And so, there is always the simple road or the difficult road to the same destination. The difficult road to a destination includes feeling very uncomfortable for long enough until one decides to no longer be in a position or create discomfort for themselves. The comfortable route involves seeing that the discomfort is unnecessary and simply no longer creating the discomfort. This is a vibrational and frequency-based choice. It requires an individual to be diligent about their thoughts and which beliefs they are going to choose. Many are the stimulus in your current environment that point towards you choosing fear as opposed to faith. The faith is not required on an external level. You do not have to have faith that everything will be okay. You just have to have faith in yourself. For the moment that you believe that something needs to be okay, you are demonstrating that you do not have faith. Because faith requires you not needing it to be okay. This is a lesson many of you are wanting to learn at this time. This is why things are presenting themselves in the way that they are. This is also why half of your population believes that things are getting worse, while the other half believes that things are getting better. They are simply choosing the more difficult or the simpler route. If you pay attention to where your focus is most of the time, you can begin to understand which route you have been choosing and very quickly move to the more comfortable route. If you like, it is not necessary. Nothing is necessary. The actual sequence of events in your life, including those that seem to be on a collective level, is absolutely inconsequential. Your growth will happen whether climate change is real or not, and whether or not this planet bursts into a ball of flames. Never assume that anything is real. Unless, of course, you want to. But if you want to, know that there will be the effects of the assumption of that thing being real. And we are not referring to climate change in your timeline specifically, because we would not. We sustain that you get to choose what the outcome of every single event that enters your consciousness will be. You get to choose. You get to choose if things miraculously get better. You get to choose if aliens land tomorrow. You get to choose the invention of a new fruit. So, while we see that there are collective themes that you are playing with, our only advice would be to be part of the collective that is choosing what you would have happen. Actively choosing. With faith in that power. Because we promise you, you cannot get it wrong. You cannot make a mistake. Many of you fear choosing a positive outcome for the stories in your heads because you feel as if you would get your hopes up and be proven wrong somehow. But remember, even in the worst case scenario, which is that you turn out to be a fool, the entire time leading up to the end of the story, you felt good. There's no benefit for feeling bad until the story turns out well. And if you imagine doom and then find salvation, well, then you've spent your life imagining doom. And what kind of life is that? You will be directed to action that supports the outcome that you choose through faith. So back to this question of climate change, you will be directed to actions that support you improving the climate through your desire to improve the climate, not through your fear. So you are safe to let go of a fear of not participating in an improvement of the climate. This applies to every topic. If you look at your history, as we were perusing just now, and all of the predicted disasters, all of the end of the world scenarios that were creatively planned and transmitted to you, you would laugh and you would see how ironic it is that when the world did not end, you did not celebrate on the day that it did not end. Today, the world did not end. Any number of unseen and unknown factors that your small scientific community could not predict could have happened today, and indeed did, for there's ever numerous potentials of possibilities happening simultaneously. But in your reality, the world did not end today. You did not die today yet. And yet you are not celebrating. Go have fun. What you came for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions from the group at this time? It appears that there's no further questions at this moment.
Wonderful. We would like you to go and find a pond and a handful of pebbles and throw them into the pond and watch the ripples that form as they move the water around them for no other reason than because you can. And with that, we say good night. Thank you.
Thank you for joining, and thank you for this wonderful conversation.